Have you asked the question, well, where did God come from? I've done that. I don't get very far when I try to answer it. I'm not going to answer that today, in case you were wondering. One of the things about origins is that we always want to know, well, what happened before that? And what about before that? Science has been on a quest to understand, well, what happened before that for a long time. And we get back to this point where we say, well, something happened before the Big Bang. Something caused it, something did it, what is it? Where did that come from? Well, maybe it's an expansion from something else. Well, maybe it's from, and we now have to go into these wild theories about what happened before that. That's what kept me in my studies when I was discouraged by the sort of practice of what I thought ministry was going to be. That question kept me on my path of studies that said, well, where did this come from? What happened before that? And I got really excited about all of the research and academics and everything that goes into where did all of this religion come from? And so you start tracing it back. Well, obviously Christianity is born out of Judaism, which has a starting place. For a while they didn't call it Judaism. That's a new term. But at some point that shifted, and at some point there was an origin story to religion, and at some point there was an origin story to somebody experiencing God. That's what this series is about, and it's what drove me in my studies to continue in religion, to continue studying Christianity, to continue studying faith long enough for me to go, why am I doing this? And bring me back here. Anyway, that's another story. But these origin stories matter to us, and it's amazing to watch how we desire more information. Star Wars. Anyone got their tickets? Star Wars was a series about a character. But we had to know more. Well, what happened before that? Give us some more information. How did he get to this dark place? How did he come out of this? How do we know that this is his father? And what happened before that? We had to know more, and so we ask for more. We want origin stories. Sometimes we ask about origin stories because we need to know what we're supposed to do ourselves. We like to hear about somebody's life. Well, how did you get here? Like what brought you to the decision to do this and to study this? I'd like to do that. Well, how did you get going on that? I played soccer all the way from a very, very young age. My whole life, basically, I played soccer and I loved it. At one point, I don't remember when, I think it was in high school, my mom was like, how did you get so good? And I was like, I've been playing my whole life. And she said, no. I was like, you've been at my games. Like, what do you mean no? But I played a lot of soccer and I loved it. But I didn't know how to use it, if that makes sense. I didn't have the story of how somebody got to use it as a profession, or how somebody moved from playing for fun in a rec league to playing at a university in a scholarship. Nobody gave me that story, so I didn't have it to work with and say, where are the origin stories of Beckham? I didn't have, not like I had that kind of talent. That's another issue. But I didn't have that story to say, I need the origin story of Beckham so that I can know how to prepare myself for what comes next. We talk a lot about this with our kids. Kayam's learning to play the violin. Why? I don't know. He just decided he wanted to play the violin. We said, okay, that's cool. We'll get you some lessons. But now we have to move him from this seems fun to I'm preparing for something else. So telling him the origin stories of how somebody got to be really good playing the violin and how many hours of practice they put in to do something with that talent is part of sharing our stories and part of learning and part of growth. So one of the things about these origin stories in Genesis is, what do we do with this? How do we learn from this? How do we take this and move it into our own faith and get to this place? Abraham didn't show up one day. Maybe he did. We don't really know. But we'll just assume that Abraham didn't show up one day with this mighty faith where he would go anywhere and do anything for God. He had a story that led him to this place. And our faith as a whole has an origin story that leads us into understanding and moving and seeing God's work in the world. And that's what learning is about. It's about, how did we get here? How did he get there or she get there? And how do we replicate that? This morning I want to talk about just a very brief story. And it's going to be a theme for a few chapters in this text. And that's basically it's a different kind of family. So we're going to finish Jacob and Esau, because I know you've been dying to find out what happens after Jacob and Esau struggle and fight with each other in the womb. They come out, literally Jacob grasped Esau's foot as he comes out and is born. And they fight their whole upbringing. They are the opposite ends of spectrum. You can just see the sense. You've got this burly, hairy Esau, and who's named Esau because of his red bear fur kind of demeanor or whatever, and Jacob, who is loved by his mother and fits all of the stereotypes that go along with that. So what happens in this story? Well, this is a place, and we're just going to set the stage for a minute, because we do a lot of this. We base a lot of decisions and move a lot of places based on fear or based on protection. And this is a hostile world. What we see out here, this is friendly. Moving from, the heated building to the heated car to the heated work environment. This is friendly environment, okay? The world of Jacob and Esau and Abraham, this is hostile. This is moving your family and your people so that you can survive. Moving your flock so that they have fresh water and you have to find it. That's easy here. I mean, you just walk into the hills. But if you walk into Golden Ears and start trying to live and eat with your animals, it's not going to be that easy. It's a whole different world when all of this sort of goes away. This is a hostile environment. So a lot of, even in Scripture, as we read through Scripture, a lot of Scripture is built around rules that are trying to protect a community, trying to protect the barriers and the boundaries of where the community begins and ends so that they can survive. And really often it is truly about survival. So put yourself in that setting. And as you think about the community and the people, it is a different kind of response to foreigners. We're experiencing some of that, right? We're seeing some responses to Syrian refugees that say, we need to protect our borders, we need to protect our land, we need to protect our people at the cost of caring for individuals. This is the kind of environment that we're talking about 100-fold, where you have to protect and care and really set up your borders. So you are hostile toward foreigners. You are protective of your offspring. You are protective of your family. You are protective of your livestock. You have to care for everything as if you're not going to see blessings tomorrow. You have to be prepared. You have to prepare yourself for tomorrow. And it's not having some food in the pantry. It's having grass and grain for your animals to eat and having water for you to drink, down to the harshest of elements. I say all that. I set this stage to say this family, this Abrahamic family, is different. And from day one, they've been raised differently. Yet they still often make decisions that are based on fear and protection. And so when Jacob steals the blessing from his father, his mother says, I'm going to lose his father, I'm going to lose him. And out of fear and out of protection, she says, Jacob, you need to go somewhere else and live for a period of time till things settle down. And so Jacob does, and he takes, what he needs maybe to survive, and he goes. Out of fear and out of protection for his own life, he leaves because there is no sort of inherent graciousness in this society. There's an expectation that Esau's anger will overcome him, even to the point of killing his own brother. And so Jacob has to go for protection. That's what's expected of Esau. Last week we started the story of Jacob coming back to his hometown. And what's amazing about this is you see the fear built up in him. You see the need to protect his family, the need to protect what he has, the expectations of a community that is still going to hold that vengeance and that need to enact retaliation. And so here's how he returns to Esau. This is quite fascinating. But remember, he's left also for protection of his own family. He's run from Laban to care for his own. So we're backing up just a little bit. So this is how he's organized his clan as he's entering back into the land where Esau might be. Jacob sent messengers before him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, instructing them, Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, Thus says your servant Jacob, hear the language, servant Jacob, I have lived with Laban as an alien and stayed until now, and I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male and female slaves, and I have sent to tell my Lord in order that I might find favor in your sight. Instead of the fear and protection and attitude that you are expected to have, let me tell you all the good reasons I might be as a benefit to your community. Oxen, donkeys, flocks, male and female slaves, and I have sent them to tell my Lord so that I might find favor. The messengers returned to Jacob. We came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. This is the expectation. We're not going to get into the story just quickly of what comes next, what's next in these few chapters, but just surveying our crowd right now. But a sister is raped in a few chapters, and her brothers go and kill everyone in the community. That's the kind of hostility that we're involved in, and so it is expected that these 400 men are coming out to meet Jacob with hostility, with anger, with violence. And Jacob said, O God, my father Abraham, and God, my father of Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, and I will do you good. I am not worthy of the least of all the steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed the Jordan, and now I have become two companies. Deliver me, please, from the hand of my brother. He is living in fear, concerned about the protection of his family. And so what he does next is quite interesting. So he starts to organize his clan, and he says, let's see, he took with him, present for his brother Esau, 200 female goats, 20 male goats, and 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 milk camels and their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. These he delivered to his servants and drove ahead of him. This is how he's going to enter to meet Esau. He's going to send all of these hundreds of animals to greet Esau so he can butter him up, right? He's trying to undo the fear and the protection and the need for everything. He obviously feels he's done him quite wrong in the past, right? So pass on ahead of me and put a space between drove and drove. So you're going to see first a set of goats, and then there's going to be a space, and then you're going to see a set of rams, and then there's going to be a space, and you're going to see the camels, and then a space and colts, and then cows, and then bulls, so that there's time for all of this to sink in as he approaches his brother, because he lives in such fear in this hostile world. Have you wronged somebody before? Did you offer gifts to undo that wrong? That's what's going on here. You don't have to answer that question. I've done it. After this, you shall say the same thing to Esau. You shall say, moreover, your servant Jacob is behind us, for he thought, I may appease him with the present that goes ahead of me, and afterwards I shall see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. So the present passed on ahead of him, and he himself spent that night in the camp. So we're going to move to chapter 33, and now he's going to organize his own people. That's not enough, right? So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the two maids, and he put the maids with their children in front, then Leah with her children, then Rachel and Joseph last of all, and he himself went ahead of them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near his brother. All of this fear, all of this protection, all of this angst is built into this moment. And he's sent animals, he's sent people, he's sent gifts. He has shown his clan of children and family, maybe to garner sympathy. All of this has come out of fear for who his brother is. But he's got his brother tagged wrong. And we do this all the time. We think, I know what will help appease this situation. Or we say, I know what somebody wants so that I can get what I need from them. And we tag them wrong, and we stereotype them wrong. Here's the deal, is that Esau has grown up in a family that believes that their role is to bless the world. Remember when we started this, that Abraham is a different clan. God has called him to be a different family. And the world around him that is full of hostility, full of fear, full of protection instincts is not the same instincts that Esau has grown up with. The instincts that Esau has grown up with is one that we are here to be somebody different, to be a different kind of people, to be a kind of blessing. In a world of hostility, in a world of protection, forgiveness comes sort of at the end of the line of values. Graciousness has to come at the end of the line of values because you can't survive being gracious and forgiveness. But Esau's family has grown up differently. And sometimes he gets a bad rap. In fact, he gets a very bad rap because what happens next is they tell us all of the bad people, seriously, they tell us all of the bad people and clans. It's a list, it's several paragraphs of people that Israel feels are bad people. And they've all come from Esau. So he gets a bad rap. But the reality is, in this moment, when everything is expected for him to be violent and hostile, Esau ran to meet him and embraced him, and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they together wept. Is that what you expected when he sent 400 men out to meet him? He brought 400 men out so that he could weep in front of them. When Esau looked up and saw the women and children, he said, "Who are these with you?" "These are the children whom God has graciously given your servant." And Esau said, "What do you mean by all this company that I met?" And Jacob answered, "To find favor with my Lord." But Esau said, "I have enough. My brother, keep what you have for yourself." So even those gifts don't go very far with Esau, because he comes from a different family. He comes from the family that has a mission to live differently in this world, that experiences God differently, a God that is gracious and not hostile, a God that is loving and not fearful. So he responds differently because he lives in a different family. This theme that shows up here, this theme of, we'll call it forgiveness or graciousness or something, is going to show up again later on in this story. And I think it's indicative of who we are as a people, who God is, and our origins come out of a story of caring for others, living differently, acting in faith against the grain of what's expected and what society says you should be doing to care for your own. And if we recognize in this our origin stories, we can find a way to live ourselves. So how did Isaac's kids get to a place where they offer forgiveness and love and weeping when they shouldn't? It's because they lived differently. It's because he experienced God differently. That's our job, right? And if we can see where Abraham's family came from and where they got to, this mighty faith that we tell about these great people, well, their origin stories are found in how they think about their family. That is one of a blessing. How they think about the world around them. That is, how can we care for them? How can we bless them? And instead of the fear and protection that Esau should have brought to the table, he brings graciousness and forgiveness. And it impacts children and children's children and children's children's children, or something like that. How did he get there? He started with graciousness and love and care for those around him. I didn't grow up to be a professional soccer player like I thought I should have, or less so a baseball player like I also thought I should have. But I didn't also either, I guess I should say, have the origin stories to say, how do I get there? And if you want to go somewhere with your faith in terms of How do I be like these people of the Bible? Read carefully. Some of these people you don't want to be like. But how do I be like some of these people of the Bible? How does my faith get to this point? Read the origin stories and see where they're coming from. Nobody told me how Beckham got where he got. Not that I was going there anyway, but I didn't prepare myself for that moment. Somebody has told us how to get where these guys have gotten in their faith. And it comes from responding differently to the world. And this is what God has called us to do. And this is where we can take this. So, soccer stories aside, the reality is we can all step into a bigger, bolder faith by practicing what these origin stories tell us, by practicing the way they look at the world. And it's not with fear. It's with love. It's plain and simple, switch. I don't know what you do with that. Hopefully you think about, well, where am I going this week? And who am I responding to? And who am I speaking with? And what's expected in that situation? So I mentioned the Syrian refugees. All across the U.S., not as much here, but some. But all across the U.S., there's murmurs about we need to protect. We need to have fear. And God's statement is different. And your response to situations needs to follow God's faithfulness and God's love, which is not acting out of fear, but acting out of love. In small situations and in big situations.